and just filling up my tea so then I can drive home and talk about seeing wildlife in zoos or seeing wildlife in the wild. This is spilling tea, like a travel story, right? So I have seen lots of different animals while I've been traveling. Spilling tea. And I've got a snake story to tell you to start with. So I've been out today seeing some actual wildlife, and I went into a lolly shop, and sorry, I got sucked in, right? I've got chocolate snakes. So snakes, like gummy bear snakes, covered in chocolate. Oh yeah, it's alright. I've just spilt it on myself. Oh yeah, it's alright. Gummy in there. Wash it down with a bit of tea. That's alright actually. Right, let me put my seatbelt on. Let me put you into here and let's drive. So, talking about snakes, since I'm eating a snake. Now, all the stories I've learned this. Sorry, I'm now eating a snake and I can't help myself. I've got to chew it. It's quite chewy. I've never eaten snake to start with, okay? Would I eat snake? Hope not. Hope not. I really hope I haven't eaten snake. So I'm driving home. So I was going to eat the rest of this now. Okay. So, snake. This one time I was in Bali. I was there for an Easter holiday with some girlfriends. And we went to a zoo. And to be honest, I didn't probably want to go. But my friends all wanted to go. So I went. And look, the first thing we saw was it had a cafe and they had tigers and they were prancing up and down against the glass and they were pacing. And I just remember sitting there thinking, oh, these poor tigers. Like, they looked so unhappy. I mean, I'm sure they were fed and watered, but like, they're just pacing up and down against the glass. And you're watching them from the glass window. And I just felt so sorry for these poor animals that were stuck in this, it's not like a cage, but it's a big cage. just happened to be a cage, right? Now, look, understand that, a lot of us are never ever going to see a tiger in the wild. And to be honest, I don't think you really want to see a tiger in the wild because that means you're probably going to die. So, the only opportunity you're going to see one is probably in a zoo, right? But, like, I have this, like, I mean, I'm not the only one that feels like this, but, like, when you see animals in the wild, you've got to feel sorry for them. Like, like, they're not free. They're never going to be free. A lot of these animals are, like, bred. So they've never actually been in the wild. So you're like, well, then they don't know any better, right? Well, of course they don't know any better, but the poor things have never had the opportunity to be in the wild. I mean, especially tigers, right? Tigers are supposed to be like roaming and, just free. And, they're just pacing up and down a window looking at us humans. And I just think, oh, I felt really dirty. So same day, there was a big snake. I don't know, it wasn't a venomous snake, right? But it was one of those albino snakes. It's like yellow and white. It was massive and yellow and white, right? And my friend Leah paid for, a picture with the, she paid to hold the snake. Anyway, she grabbed me. She's like, I'm not doing it by myself. I'm like, oh, okay. So anyway, I sat there and they put this big giant snake around our shoulders, and I just was like, oh, this is not fun. Like it was, like first of all, like touching a snake. Well, you weren't really touching it, I guess. You would like it was just holding on your shoulders, right? And I was just thinking, oh, like the feel of the snake on your shoulders was just, oh, yeah. I mean, the photos of me like going, ugh. Yeah, it was. Again, it felt dirty. But I get dirtier. It gets dirtier, right? So then they bring out like a chimpanzee, and like I'm gonna be honest, I think I've burnt this from my brain because it was the cutest thing you've ever seen, right? It was a baby one too. It was so cute, and like I don't think I held it, to be honest. I think my friend paid the money, right? So she is holding its hands and it's sitting on her lap, and like it's the cutest thing you've seen, right? It's gorgeous. But again, us humans should never be that close to animals like this, right? But again, you'd say, well, it's probably born in captivity, so it doesn't know any better. Yeah, I know, but still, you know, doesn't sit pretty, right? So anyway, that was one time. Um, and I have heard, I don't know if that zoo is still even open. Actually, no. I saw a sign for it, so I think it is still open, actually. I think it is still open. But I didn't go there last time I was in Bali, obviously. Definitely avoided that one like the plague. And I'm sure when I was there with Paul D Australia, he wouldn't have wanted to go either. Um, but yeah, it's still there. But I think, to be honest, one of the first memories I've got of wildlife, not wildlife, I guess caged animals, and it's not a nice sight, okay? It's not a nice vision, is visiting my mum's family in Indonesia. So I'm half Indonesian. My mum is Indonesian. My dad is Australian. I'm half Indonesian. And my mum is from Sumatra, which is the biggest island in Indonesia. And obviously, Indonesia is a third world country, right? I live in Australia. It's a first world country. The conditions of animals in zoos in Australia are completely different to conditions of animals in zoos in Indonesia. Okay, um, both are wrong, but personally I feel both are wrong. But the zoo that I went to in Medan, which is the capital of Sumatra, when I was like probably about 7 years old, is burnt into my brain. And again, half of it's probably gone because it was pretty traumatic. Thanks, Mum. But this zoo, basically, you pay to get in the zoo, and you also pay to not feed them, like you don't feed them yourself, but you pay so that the animals get fed. Like that's pretty traumatic for me, I think. I feel like, and now you see this orangutan. So orangutans are only found in Indonesia and Borneo in Malaysia, in the jungles, right? And I was lucky enough last year to see an orangutan in the jungle, in the wild. The only time I've seen an animal like an orangutan so healthy, right? But when I was 7 years old, in this Medan Zoo, you walk in and there's this cage, a small cage, and there's an orangutan in it, and it's skinny. So I guess you feel really bad and you want to feed it more, right? Whether or not the money goes to, hey Nicholas, how you going? Goes to the orangutans, I don't know, right? I doubt it. I doubt it. It probably goes to the people that own the zoos, right? But they weren't feeding the animals. Like the orangutan was visibly skinny. It was it was horrible. And I just remember as a 7 year old kid, like, what am I doing? Like what can I do, right? I just remember thinking, this is not nice. Again, it felt, I mean, I wouldn't have thought said dirty back in this, as a 7 year old, but I think now as a 51-year-old, yeah, that was a dirty, dirty experience. Seeing a poor caged orangutan, very malnourished, very, very skinny. And that, you pay to go into a zoo and then you pay money to feed the animal, as in like give them money so that they feed their animal. Like, I think that's just terrible. That's exploitation, right? That poor, 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 poor orangutan was sick. So anyway, and there was more than one orangutan in a cage. I can't remember, but like it was just not a nice memory. So again, third world countries don't have the same conditions as first world countries and the way they look after animals. I'm sure that zoo is actually gone, closed down, burnt, boom, boom, gone. Because I'm sure like animal activists would have, even though it was a third world country, would have stepped in and said, hey, that's not right. So I'm sure that's gone. So let's have some tea. So, but the other side of that is, right, like for example, in America, okay, let's put in America. A lot of people will never come to Australia, okay? Australia is way too far away for a lot of people. The flight's really long, it's expensive, and not everyone flies well, right? If you live in a country that, is like America, most places are close. Like Mexico's close, Canada's close, Europe's close. So you don't do long flights. But if you live in Australia, if you want to go to America or Canada or Europe, you're going to have to do a long flight. It is just what it is. So we're way used to flying long haul than people in the Northern Hemisphere. So if people in the Northern Hemisphere want to come to Australia to see a koala in the wild, well, it's not easy, right? Because A, it's a flight, A, it's expensive, it takes time, and not everyone flies well. So, if you want to see a koala, you probably have to go to a zoo. I don't know where in America, but I'm sure there's zoos, right? And they probably have koalas. Um, I'm not saying you should go see them, but I mean, that's how people see a koala, right? Obviously, on my channel, I take you on walks and I show you koalas. And, sometimes we see them, sometimes you don't. It's just the luck of the draw, right? I mean, when we met up with Shansters Travels, we just got really, really lucky that I got to show her, a koala in the wild. Like, she has seen koalas at zoos. Coming from America, she has gone to see koalas in the zoos. Um, and look, no shame. That's her. She can do what she wants to do, right? Me personally, I don't want to see an animal in a zoo. And so many people come to Australia. I get it because they're never going to have the opportunity to see a koala. So they come to Australia, like for example, Australia Zoo. I have a love-hate relationship with Australia Zoo because I love it because Australia Zoo was started by Steve Irwin. Well, it's not Steve Irwin, it's Steve Irwin's father actually. And obviously Steve Irwin made it really famous, and he did so much for conservation, and so did Bob Irwin, Steve Irwin's father. So much for conservation and the animals, right? And since obviously Steve has passed away, the family have taken over it, and it's become a massive, massive money making machine, right? And now they have an African section, like they actually have African animals like the tigers and elephants and zebras and rhinos, all the African animals, right? And back in the day, when Steve Irwin owned it, or his family owned it, they didn't have they didn't have animals from overseas. They just highlighted, they wanted to show koalas and kangaroos and show people, that, the actual conservation and talk about the conservation of especially crocodiles, right? And that, and probably teaching people about, don't jump in waterways so that, you don't get eaten by orangutan, I mean, a crocodile. I mean, that was the whole idea of the zoo originally. I think it's a bad name for it back in the day. It was probably more a sanctuary, but now it's a full blown zoo. Full blown zoo. And I'm going to start a new series. I'm saying it out loud because that way I have to do it. So I'm about to go to Africa, and obviously I'm going to have an overload of animals, right? But in the wild. I'm not going to a zoo. I'm going to game parks. So gaming parks are, well, you could kind of say they're giant cages, but in the other side of that, they're big giant areas that are protecting the animals so that humans can't get in and poach them, and then the animals can't get out and get killed. I mean, there are cases of, there's only a few white rhinos left in the world. I think there's only a handful of them, and they actually have to have full-time minders so that people don't poach them because they're that endangered that people would steal them and try to, have their skin or something like that. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? But again, who are we to judge? In people in Africa, if they actually, they could make a crap load of money, and they don't have a lot of money in Africa. I'm not saying that's a good thing to do, right? But I'm just saying, there's reasons why people do these things. And then there's also dickheads that literally, I'm sorry, I'm just generalizing, but there's many um, Americans or Canadians or South African people. You've seen pictures of them, right? And they're trophies. They're holding actual tusks of elephants or elephant heads in their hands, and they're sitting on the elephant they've killed and they shot them. Like, that to me is disgusting. Apparently, Trump's son there was a picture of Trump's son doing it. Disgusting. But where am I going with this? So anyway, so basically, I am going to start a new series. So while I'm in Africa, I won't be posting much. Okay, but I will start making videos. Never late than never, and scheduling them. And I will go through different animals that I've seen in the wild. I am going to show you some footage of Australia Zoo. I have been to Australia Zoo in the last year, and I tried to go open-minded. And you guys can make your mind up if you think it is a zoo and it's a full-blown zoo and they are exploiting animals, or you think it's a sanctuary and they are saving animals and educating us people. You can watch it and see. You can answer the question yourself. There's some. I've had some great wildlife encounters. Not as in right face to face. Obviously, I don't want to encounter an animal face to face, to be honest. But I've seen them from a while, from a distance. And so yeah, I just thought it'd be really cool to show you some footage. And there are some footages of where it is I'm not proud of, but just to show you and ask you the question: do you think that is right or wrong? Because some of these places are still doing these things. It's definitely not. I've never taken. I've never gone and saw the tigers in Thailand and got photos with the poor drunken tigers. Never done that. Diego has though. I'd never do that. Um, so there's definitely things that I would have never wanted to do. And for example, I've always wanted to swim with the whale sharks, but I had heard that in the Philippines that a lot of the whale shark companies, tour companies, actually feed the whale shark, so they are trapped to the boat. For me, that doesn't feel right because again, I don't like anything to do with feeding animals. I feel like even people feeding ducks, I don't think that's right. Or feeding seagulls or whatever. You just don't feed them. They're wild for a reason. But when we start giving them food, then they rely on us humans, right? And then they stop eating their own food. I mean, ducks eating bread is really bad. So anyway, so basically, yeah, that was one of my big I did not want to didn't want to swim with the whale sharks in the Philippines, with those companies that fed the animals. But there was a situation, I found another company. There's a situation on that tour that I don't really feel very comfortable about. I haven't really talked very much about when I saw the Komodo dragons in Indonesia, because I saw them in the wild, but there was a scenario there too that didn't really sit pretty either. So again, I'll ask you the question. So when you see the videos, I will ask you in the end what you think. Do you think that's was that wild, or was it, because I guess a lot of places now are understanding that a lot of people don't want to see animals caged, but they all see the tourist money is still wanting to, they still want to make money. And yeah, anyway, I'm not going to get too far into it, but I will explain it in those videos, especially the Komodo dragon one and the one about the whale sharks, because yeah. So anyway, today I went to a whale watching tour. They don't feed the animals. They don't feed the whales at all. It's illegal to do that here in Australia. And they also have big rules on like the distances between the boat and the whales. So when they see a whale, they have to stay at least, I don't know if it's 50 meters or 100 meters, I'm not completely sure, but there has to be a distance, and they stop. And then if the whales come towards the boat, then that's okay, right? But that's the whales coming to the boat, not us going to the whales. So yeah. So anyway, there's been some really cool whale encounters too. I've been very, very lucky to see some really cool whale encounters. So today was really cool, actually. So anyway, in upcoming videos, it won't be Spilling the Tea series, but it'll be a series, what did I call it? Encounters of Wildlife with Dora. Encounters with Animals in the Wild with Dora. That's what I was going to call it. Anyway, stay tuned to it. You'll see Komodo dragons, there'll be turtles, there'll be dolphins, there'll be whales, whale sharks, orangutan sharks. Yep, sharks. I can't remember. Koalas, platypuses. Yeah. There was even a scenario. Oh, God, this is even. Oh my gosh, 25 years ago. I was in Hong Kong. Like I said, I'm not going to see a panda bear, and I went to a Hong Kong zoo to see a panda bear. And the photos I have of that, they look fake. People have showed the photos and they're like, is that a fake panda? Because it doesn't look real. Because pandas are just, I mean, that's another one of those elusive animals that, not too many of us are ever going to see a panda in the wild. Possible to see a panda in the wild because there's not that many of them left in the world. I actually have a friend that I made friends with on Instagram, and she actually went to a sanctuary in China, and you volunteer, so you actually have to pay. You pay to volunteer in a wildlife, like in a panda bear sanctuary. And yeah, I don't know about that, if that's just a con to like get you to pay money to see an animal, or if it is actually a sanctuary. I'm not completely sure. I've never really looked into it, to be honest. But as I said, yeah, about 20 years ago, I actually went to Hong Kong, and this is before I kind of started thinking, this is not a cool thing to see animals in the wild. And yeah, I saw a panda bear in the wild, in the zoo, and I look at the photos now, and I feel, feel dirty, basically. So anyway, that's my spilling the tea. You can't hardly even see me, but yeah. Let me just think if I can think of one more animal scenario. Oh yes, oh my gosh, this is the worst one actually. Dolphins in captivity. Oh my goodness. I've got to say, I think the dolphins in captivity is something that's starting to really not be a thing anymore. Um, Basically, where I used to live in Mexico, I'm in Cancun area. Cancun is massive in dolphin exploitation, to be honest. They have lots of aquariums where they keep dolphins, and they're actually bred. They're bred incapacitated. Oh my god, I can't even speak now. They're bred in these aquariums, and they've never been in the wild before, and it's horrible. It's heartbreaking to see. And then you'll see again. I've been to them. There's restaurants, and there's an aquarium, and you're like having dinner, and there's just these aquarium behind you with dolphins swimming around. And then they've got places where you swim with the dolphins. So literally in an aquarium, and you swim with the dolphins, and you hold onto their dorsal fin and you swim, and like you shouldn't be touching it. Like you shouldn't be actually touching a wild animal anyway, because our skin and on their skin, it's bad. It's contaminated, right? But that's what they do in Mexico. They're really big on swimming with dolphins. But you know what they've done, right? They actually have. Oh, I've heard horror stories, right? They actually go out into the wild. These dolphins are actually penned in the wild, but in cages, but in the ocean. So they can't get out of their pen, but they're in a pen, but in the wild. Doesn't that make any sense, does it? So basically, they're in the ocean, and they've got nets up, so they can't get out of that actual netting. So then basically the tourists get brought in by a boat, chucked into the water, and they swim with the dolphins. Or the dolphins get taught to jump and, jump over people, and they get photos with, the dolphins jumping over their head. And I'll be honest, when I first lived in Mexico, like 26 years ago, I was dying to do that. That was like my biggest bucket list thing. I wanted to swim with the dolphins. I wanted that cutie photo of, touching a dolphin or swimming with a dolphin, right? Thank goodness I couldn't afford to do it. Thank goodness I couldn't afford to do it, because I would be dirty as in myself that if I swam with a dolphin. No shame if you've done it, and if you're going to if you want to do it, that's fine. That's on you. Personally, for me, I'm not going to swim with a dolphin in the wild. In captivity. I think I swam with a dolphin before. I don't think I have. I think I might have been in the wild before, and I've seen a dolphin pop its head up, and I probably shit myself, right? Because I probably thought it was a shark. But I've never swam with a dolphin in a cage or captivity or anything like that. But yeah, that is a horror story, right? In Mexico, what they do, where they actually go and find, and they literally, capture wild dolphins, and then basically cage them in the ocean. I don't know if they've still done it, if they're still doing it, but as I said, 26 years ago, that's what they were doing. Now, I went back to live in Mexico about 13 years ago, and by this stage, I didn't want a bar of swimming with dolphins, right? Absolutely hated it. And where I was living, it's a place called Puerto Venturas, and in the middle, it's a beautiful beach, right? But in the middle, kind of near the beach, there's a marina, and you could walk around the marina. It had like bars and restaurants, but inside they had basically, I guess, like aquarium tanks. They weren't, they were caged. They're like full-on swimming pools kind of thing. But they were getting fresh water from the ocean, but the animals couldn't get in and out, right? So they had dolphins literally living in these tanks. And oh man, I would walk past in the afternoon, late in the afternoon, after all the tourists had gone home or gone away, and these dolphins looked like they were dead. They were just lying there looking up at you, like looking like, save me, let me, the Free Willy kind of scenario. Like I so wanted to somehow jump in there and let these dolphins out. Like they were so sad looking. But then you watch in the morning, right? Like 10 o'clock in the morning, all the tourists come, and the dolphins, they've got to perform. They jump up in the air, you hold onto their dorsal fin, and they swim around this aquarium. I don't know if they still do it. No idea. As I said, I haven't been back for 13 years. I'd say the marina's still there, but I hope to God that there's no more dolphins left in there. I really hope not. But in Mexico, there probably is. But yeah, that was sad to watch, and like that, I guess that's one of the biggest things that probably started me on my quest to like not go to zoos and support that kind of infrastructure, right? I don't want to give any money to that kind of, thing. Like, that's not right. Like, money should be given to, like, World Wildlife Fund, who actually, like, help animals in the wild, right? Try to, make sure that species don't, disappear. But, giving your money to swim with a dolphin that's in captivity, yuck. So yeah, that was a pretty sad thing to see. And look, I would spend lots of time walking through this marina. So, and I would just see these poor dolphins, and I would sometimes just stand there and go, oh my goodness, as I said, it was a Free Willy scenario. I was just like, how can I free these poor animals, right? So the Free Willy movie I'm talking about, right? So yeah, it was horrible. So yeah, but eventually you just were blind to it. You would walk past and you wouldn't even see the wild. You wouldn't even see the dolphins anymore because you're just so used to walking past. Um, yeah. Anyway, I should do a bit of Google searching and see if they actually still do have dolphins in those tanks. Not sure, but yeah, it's not nice. But it's like, I guess, in Australia, like you can circling back to Australia Zoo being so supposed to be a sanctuary, right? Actually have a section where you can walk past and get your photo taken, with koalas. So, I mean, I don't think that's very conservationist like. But anyway, who am I? Maybe that is conservation. I don't know. But yeah, as I said, I will post the videos and then you guys can make your mind up what you think. If it is a zoo or a full-blown zoo, or if they are doing really good things for conservation and animals. Anyway, I am literally driving into my driveway, and I know that this video is probably not very good because you can't even see me, but that's all right. You can hear me. That's the main thing. Not about looking at me. Anyway, thanks for joining Spilling the Tea. Cheers, big ears. Anne-Marie, I hope you enjoyed that story, and I'd love to hear your take on animals in captivity. See you guys. Check you out. Hopefully I pull my finger out and get these videos up. So yeah, what do I call it again? Encounters with wild animals. Encounters with wild animals, and oh god, I don't know. Something about encounters with wild animals. Anyway, there's a series coming up. Not a live stream, it'll just be a video. Okay, bye.